another great episode with my legendary co host, Miss Jackie Pellegrin. And what will be our amazing verse, Miss Jackie?
Yes, so our verse for today is from 2 Timothy 4:7. It's the following verse: I have fought the good fight, I have finished the race, I have kept the faith.
Oh, wow. That's really amazing, amazing, Miss
Yes.
Jackie. So, what is all about for you this verse?
Well, this is towards the end of Paul's journey. He's in prison, he's in Rome, and he's getting ready to be executed. So he knows that he's fought the good fight and he's finished the race that God set out for him. So I think it's a really important verse, at least for me, because it shows um, that when God sets us out on a path and we follow that path, that we can reach the end of our life whenever that is, and then we can say, okay, I've fought the good fight and I've finished the race, I've kept the faith. So if we think of like a actual metaphor of a runner, right, we can think of how a runner does that. I know a friend of mine who's also a believer, and she doesn't do this much anymore, but she used to run marathons, and it wasn't just get on that course and run, right? She had to prepare for it. She had to get her body ready for it. She had to get herself ready mentally and emotionally for it. So yeah, so this is a really good verse because it just shows that we don't just live life just haphazardly, but we live it with a plan with God in mind. So yeah.
Miss Jackie, what does Paul mean by calling life a good fight? And how does that redefine struggle as something meaningful rather than a negative one?
Yeah, I think, when we think of fighting, we think of going against somebody or something, right? So I think what this means is that, for me at least, when he says, I fought the good fight, we think of the times that he was living in. It was not an easy time, and we know today is not easy either. But I think what's interesting is during that time, if we look back to when Paul was living, this was after Jesus had died and he had resurrected, and the disciples were all preaching and teaching, and some of them had been martyred for their faith. And so and unfortunately Paul was part of persecuting Christians at first, right, until
Yes.
Jesus came to him on the road to Damascus, and then he changed his life. So it's very interesting how you look at that time period and you look and see how things were very challenging for believers. And so I think that is very imperative for us today as well, because they were fighting for their faith, and then we also fight for our faith as well.
Yes, we're fighting for sure. And I think this refraining struggle as a purposeful rather than pointless, don't you think? And this phrase come from his reflection near to the end of his life, where he described faith as something actively counted for, not passively maintained.
Right.
Wow. It's something that we think for. So, Miss Jackie, how can we discern the difference between fighting battles that matter and exhausting ourselves in conflicts that distract from our calling?
Oh, that's a great question. I'd like to hear your take on this too.
Yes.
I think we have to pick the battle, quote unquote battles. They're not always going to be physical battles, but I think we have to pick the battles that we're going to fight for. So if it's something that we know that we need to, that it's a moral type of situation, or it's for a family or friend, or a family member or a friend, or someone that we're standing up for, right? I think that's when we need to look at it and say, okay, is this, that one saying where it says pick your battles,
Yes,
right?
pick your battles.
Yeah, that's kind of what I think of is, we don't want to fight every battle or every fight, but we want to pick the ones that really matter. And so for me, it's, my faith is very important. And so I'm going to, if, for example, if, and this has been talked about before by other faith leaders, that if for some reason, because there's other third world countries where the Bible is banned, where it's not allowed. And
Mm-hmm.
so, but in the United States, and even where you are, Daniel, you're in Canada, right?
Yes.
So you're allowed to have the Bible there. But in other countries like China, they have to sneak the Bible in. So if we ever had that situation happen where we were not allowed to have our Bible, what would we do, right? Would we fight for that? And what lengths would we go to do that? And so that's what the disciples did. They fought and they became martyrs for that, because they saw Jesus, they saw his miracles, and they knew that they were fighting for a cause worth dying for. So I think that's where we have to look and see what is that cause that I think is worth fighting for, and maybe even worth dying for as well.
Mm,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
And I think discerning the difference between battles that matter and conflicts that distract from our calling requires clarity of purpose,
Right.
alignment with values, and I think honest evaluation of outcomes. Meaningful battles are those that protect or advance that we can call to steward truth, character, responsibility, relationships, or mission, right?
Right.
And distracting conflicts, by contrast, consume energy without producing growth, faithfulness, or lasting good. Imagine it's something that we need to ponder each day.
Right.
So, Miss Jackie, tell us, in what ways does the metaphor of finishing the race challenge our modern obsession with the speed, shortcuts, and instant results? What practice help a person remain faithful over a lifetime rather than only during season of success or clarity?
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, and if we take it back to that, that metaphor of the racer, right? They're
Mm-hmm.
not just preparing in the moment before the race. They're like I said, my friend and coworker who used to do marathon running, she would have to prepare. And if you ask any professional runner, marathon runner, they'll tell you they have to prepare years before they get ready for that race. So it's a constant conditioning, getting up early every day, and doing that, and running and practicing and just conditioning your body and your mind for it. So I think, and there's no shortcuts around that, right? So
Mm,
yeah, if they try to rush it, or if they don't put in the right amount of practice for that to prepare for that marathon, what could happen? They could hurt themselves. Yeah, so it's a big thing. So if we look at it in the faith perspective too, yeah, we don't want to run ahead of God. We don't want to run ahead of what He's telling us is best for us, because we want to sometimes do things in our own strength, like you said, take shortcuts and things like that. But in the end, it ends up not really working out. I've done it before, and then I feel the sting of it later on, and I'm like, oh, okay,
yes.
that didn't work out so well. And so then I'm like, okay, Lord, I understand now what you were trying to tell me. And then I become more attuned to his voice and what he's saying to me. So I think that's really important to do that. And I think it's also important to do that with others too, that you're in a relationship with. So for example, my partner sometimes, he's deployed overseas right now, and so
Mm-hmm.
he goes through those moments where it's I mean, things are calm right now where he's at, but you just never know when things are going to happen. And so I give him that stability. And sometimes I go through things here at home, and we're thousands of miles away from each other, but we help each other to say, okay, we're going to fight the good fight. We're going to finish the race, and he's not going to be there forever, and he's going to eventually come home. So it's just something that we know that we're in this partnership together, and we're not in it alone. So I think and keeping God in the center of our relationship is really helped that in many ways. So,
Yes,
yeah. Mhm.
definitely. Put God first, people. The metaphor of finishing the race, as used by Paul the Apostle, directly challenges modern obsession with speed, shortcuts, and instant result by redefining success as faithful endurance rather than the rapid achievement. In today's world, what we are in the world right now, we always expecting instant, right, Miss
Right.
Jackie? Which is
Absolutely.
which is God said, no, you need to do the process. Yeah.
Right.
In a contemporary culture, value is often assigned how to quickly something is accomplished, how visible the results are, or how efficiently obstacles are bypassed. And Miss Jackie, if you would like or adapt this question or this verse to your daily life, which part of this verse would you like to be lasting in your life, to be lasting and eternal,
That's yeah, the part of the verse that I think would be, yeah,
to be last?
that's to last. Yeah, I would say I have kept the faith, because I think out of all of that, I think the part that is, and that's what Paul finishes with, I have kept the faith. So I think that's what I would want to be lasting out of all of that.
Definitely. So how does look like to keep the faith in cultures that constantly pressures people to redefine truth and values?
Oh, yes.
It's hard,
Because
right?
it's, yeah, it's hard because I look at culture like fashion trends. They come and they go. Things
Yes,
change, seasons change, but God's word endures. Through all the seasons, through all the changes, all the cultural shifts, God's word is solid. It's the same yesterday, today, and forever. So that's what I love about my faith, is that it's there are times where it, yeah, unfortunately it can be a little bit shaky sometimes because we're human beings,
yes,
unfortunately.
we are
But
human.
yeah, we're all human. But I think what we can do is we can look to God when we feel those struggles, and and it's okay. I think for me, even the moments that I cry out to the Lord and I'm like, why, Lord? He can handle it. And so I say, just give it all to him, and he can handle it all. So so I think it's important, because I think when culture shifts and changes, we need to have something stable, something that we can rely upon, because as much as we want to rely on people, and we want to rely on our comforts and our income and things like that, it's just not possible. Human beings can only do so much, and no matter how good a relationship is or anything like that, without God in it, it's really not gonna, it's gonna last and it's not gonna stand the test of time. So that's why the relationships I have God in the center of it, because yeah, he's, like Daniel, when two people get married, to me it's not just two people getting married, it's there's a third individual there, and that's God. And once you have God all the way through, and not just in the wedding ceremony, and but you bring God in, and you bring God in the marriage, that's, I think, what's really important. And that's where a lot of marriages, I think, miss the mark, is because they don't have God in the center of it. So yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes, to keep the faith in culture that constantly pressure people to redefine truth and values means practicing anchored fidelity rather than reactive adaptation,
Right.
right? In the language of Paul, the apostle, faith is not merely belief but steadfast and a commitment to live according to truth, even when the truth is unpopular, costly, or misunderstood. That's the hard thing to do. To
Oh,
follow
yes.
Jesus,
Hmm.
to follow Christ, because keeping the faith well, therefore, is less about winning arguments and more about, I think, maintaining integrity when cultural approval is withdrawn.
Right. Absolutely.
Hmm.
Yeah, like we if we think about when we do have a disagreement or a conflict with someone, what's the way that a lot of people like to handle it? They get defensive, right? Or they say, "Well, you said that or you said this," and they get hurt or something like that. But I've learned lately to reframe that. And so if I do have a disagreement with somebody or somebody says something to me, I'm not going to take it out of context right away, and I'm going to think, you know what, that person's probably stressed about something, and I'm always going to give them the benefit of the doubt, and then I'm going to come at it from a point of, okay, let me acknowledge the way that person is feeling right now, or what I think they're feeling, and then that way I'm not accusing them, and I'm not trying to be defensive. So that's what I've noticed. Has changed with me a lot lately, is that I'm approaching conflict, and I'm approaching those things from a different lens now. So it makes a relationship healthier. That's for sure. So yeah,
Mm,
yeah.
yes, definitely. So,
Hmm.
how might this verse guide leaders, parents, or mentors in thinking about legacy they are leaving behind?
Right. Yeah, I think that's so important that, I'm not a parent myself, but I think if I was a parent, I would want to. This would be a key verse I would want my child to be able to memorize, and to think, I'm leaving you this legacy, and one of the things is my faith, that I'm teaching you how to be, like you said, walk with integrity, walk with that that true that true faith, right? And what it takes, and don't let culture sway you one way or the other. And so I think, yeah, I think that's the way that we can do that, is live through our faith and show that with the children that are in our lives. So whether we're parents or not, I think we can still live that out and live that legacy.
A legacy indeed. People, we need to build a legacy because life is too short, most especially it's coming from God and we serving God. He will give you more blessings through your generation to generations to come.
Yes.
So, Miss Jackie, if we were to evaluate or evaluate your life today using Paul's three statements: fight, race, and faith, what would need to change to finish well?
Hmm. That's good. Ooh. I oh, I think for me, not running ahead of what God has planned for me, and but I think most importantly, now that I think about it, is remaining patient. I think for
Patience,
me,
yes.
yeah, because when he talks about, I've fought the good fight, I've finished the race, I've kept the faith. Those aren't things that you do quickly. Those take time to do all of that. So, and I've mentioned this to so many people, and even to my partner, he knows this, that I'm not a very patient person sometimes, and I was like this when I was a kid, where I would go on trips with my grandparents across the country, and I would be, "Are we there yet? Are we there yet?" So I kind of have that childlike mentality sometimes, where I'm like, God, why am I not there yet? Or why is this not happening yet? Right. So, but I have to remind myself that patience is a virtue, and that there is joy in the waiting, and that it doesn't have to be passive waiting. It can be active waiting. And Paul talks about that too. Right. So I think, yeah, so I think that race, like I mentioned before, is something that takes time, to cultivate. And so patience is part of that. It's cultivating. Yeah.
Cultivating indeed. Well, people are evaluating life through Paul's three statement: the fight, the race, and the faith was articulated by Paul Apostle is not exercise in self-condemnation, but in course of correction. Just like Miss Jackie said, have patience. Finish well the question is not whether struggle exists, but whether effort, endurance, and belief are properly aligned. And regarding the light, what may need to change is selectivity or selectivity. I think that's the right word.
Yes.
Selectivity,
Hmm.
right? Finishing well is often requires lying down unnecessary battles, conflicts driven by ego, comparison, distraction, or cultural noise, and recommitting energy to fight that protect integrity and calling and love. See, I told you it's hard to follow God, but once you followed Him, for sure, the door of blessings will poured upon you. So, Miss Jackie, to wrap up our discussion for today, would you like to please promote your podcast, your upcoming book, or whatever projects that you're doing right now?
Sure. Thank you, Daniel. I appreciate it. Yes. So I have my own podcast. It's called Designing with Love. I almost said Designing 101.
Why
Oh my
not?
goodness. I've got 101 on the brain now. Okay. So yeah, Designing with Love. And so they can find it on designingwithloveblog.com. They can also support the podcast as well through Buy Me a Coffee if they want to do that. I'm very active on LinkedIn. I'm there almost every day. So if anybody professionally wants to connect with me, they can go there on LinkedIn, and I can be happy to connect and have them on the podcast if they're an educator or someone that wants to talk about all things in education. So yeah.
Yes, people, let's support Miss Jackie Pellegrin. Because if you support her, for sure, more and more empowering advocacy like this to rise. And tune in for our upcoming episode of a new podcast, Coaching 101. Well, Tech 101 and AI 101. Imagine we have a lot of podcasts coming this
Yes.
2026. So, Miss Jackie, to wrap up our verse of the day, what will be your thought?
I would say don't look at just one piece of this verse, but take all three and see how you can live this out every day.
Yes, people, the fight, the race, and the faith refrain success as a faithfulness sustained over the rather than comfort, speed, or applause. The good fight calls for discernment about what is truly worth connecting for. So let's connect, people. Please do listen to our podcast and, of course, our upcoming podcast. So, Miss Jackie, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Daniel. Appreciate it.
Modicom people, see you soon.